happening yet.
Sorry,
Okay,
Councillor, we're
okay,
just
good.
setting up.
Sorry, I thought it was, I'm not used to doing this online. Thank you.
All right, you are good, Clayton.
Good to go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Metro Inner Development Assessment Panel meeting number 46. My name's Clayton Hyam, presiding member this morning, and with me I have Dale Page, the deputy presiding member, John Syme, the third specialist member, and for the first part, Councillor Andrew Sullivan and Councillor Ingrid Van Dorsten.
Morning.
Good morning. So we'll move on and declare the meeting open at 9:35 and acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia and pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panels Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with the regulations, and members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. We may refer to technical devices during the meeting, just seeking more information or additional information. Thank you. Move on. Apologies, there are no apologies. No members on leave of absence, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Move to Part B, City of Fremantle item, seeking declarations of due consideration. Of all members familiar with the material before you? If you could show of hands, please. Yes, thank you. Just note that there was an addendum to the RAR published on the 20th of November with the recommendation provided by the Council. Disclosures of interest. I've got two disclosures of interest, one from Councillor Van Dorsten and one from Councillor Sullivan. Impartiality interests, as the item was heard at Council, the Executive Director has approved that they can deliberate on this matter. Are there any other disclosures of interest? No, thank you. We have, moving to the item, Form 2 DAP application. This is the one at McCabe Street, Fremantle. We have three presenters, all presenting to the same PowerPoint. So it's normally 3 minutes per presenter, so I'll give you a total of 9 minutes. Trent, over to you to do the presentation.
Thank you, presiding member. Good morning, DAP members and councillors. My name is Trent Dodd and I'm from Method Planning, and I'm representing the owners of 19 to 21 McCabe Street, North Fremantle. I'm here with Jamie Clark from Megara, the developer, and Tom Leatherbarrow from SCA, the project architect. We respectfully ask that you adopt the recommendation for approval of the banding change as recommended by the elected members of the City of Fremantle. The purpose of today's presentation is to give you an overview of how we have ended up with the current design, as well as detail around the key design elements and background to the 3 to 4 years of research to get a suitable product and constructible and affordable banding solution. Jamie will run through this process. Tom will deal with the ultimate solution being presented today. The only change, just to emphasise, the only change is to a single design element, being the wave in the banding. The key design elements and show why discretion was used initially and to what extent in the approval. In this context, it's important to note that the proposal always was and still is compliant with a plot ratio of 2 under the RAC3 coding. Height limits at the time relied on the visual performance parameters from 2008, as you can see up on your screen. In 2020, it was acknowledged that these parameters had changed significantly. In accordance with the orderly and proper planning of the area and the future urban fabric, 8 stories would be, in 2024, within community expectations and eminently supportable in this location, considering the real and meaningful community benefit in giving up land for an easement to access a landlocked reserve for parks and recreation, as well as the design excellence achieved. The minor banding change does not impact on the parameters to which discretion was initially used for, nor result in not meeting the orderly and proper planning of the locality and the future and desired character of the area. To this end, I reiterate comments in the RAR that the street level interaction does not change and the overall organic lines of the building remain intact. The DAC, I know that the DAC only commented on the merits of the design as confirmed on page 90 of the agenda, and not the previous reasons for discretion being used or the constructability and supply issues detailed in our submission. There are no changes to key design elements and community benefits that facilitated discretion in 2020. There has been significant work to find a solution, and the project is started and out of the ground under significant supply and cost pressures. Manufacturing of the banding element will start immediately once approved today, with no impact on the PC date. Thank you. I'll now hand over to Jamie, who will detail some of the research undertaken in detailed design and construction issues experienced.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time this morning. We're pretty proud that the project's under construction. It's been tough in the market, as you would all be aware. So the journey for us, I guess the key points I wanted to make this morning is that we've had to work with a number of builders over the journey, 6 builders in total. The first 2 builders we worked with, Pindown and ProBuild, are no longer with us, but the point of that is all the builders in subsequent discussions through different ECI processes have been involved in refinement of the design and this particular element. So it has been a journey to get a solution in place. The team are fairly proud that we've managed to stay true to the overall design intent. It is a interesting building, but it comes with its challenges. There's triangles and curves, and very few apartment types are the same. So getting a project off the ground at the moment in a simple design is hard enough, but being able to stay true to our design intent to get this project off the ground is a testament to the dedication of the team. You'd be aware of the cost pressures we've been through in the market just to get this project underway. The banding itself, it's not just a cost-driven solution. It's actually been a journey with different builders, different suppliers, looking at materials, looking at who could install it locally. And this slide was really just a summary of the key people we've worked with. There's a lot more probably behind this slide. I'm happy to go into a bit more detail if anyone's got further questions, but we've looked at numerous materials, numerous supply options, and it's really getting to this point now. We've sort of run out of people who could do it, but thankfully we've found someone who can produce the design, manufacture it locally, install it without a significant impact on the delivery of the project and still achieve our overall design intent. So we're happy we've got to this solution finally, and these guys are literally ready to go with a subcontract waiting on a decision which will allow this element of the building to proceed. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I've been the project director and project architect for the last 4 years. We've been very involved with the detailed design and the technical resolution of the construction details. I'll just say Sarai is not your average apartment development. It embodies exemplary design from the overall massing and built form right down to the detailed junctions and finishes, landscape, and all the amenity offer. Conceptually, the architectural design adopted bold curves and triangular forms to maximise views and minimise bulk. Facades tear back on themselves to reduce overshadowing and create forms that are subtle reference to the local topography. And this dynamic built form was celebrated by the DRP and the city during the DA process over 4 years ago. The development also has extensive landscape component, incredible amenities for new residents, and offers multiple community benefits. So in summary, Sarai does not rely on the current slab edge facade banding profile to achieve design excellence. And the proposed amendment is, in our opinion, a subtle modification that achieves a very similar outcome. And that's particularly when it's viewed from the public domain. There's some visualizations of the development in this presentation that compare the approved slab edge profile with the new proposed profile. The change in depth removed the curved waveforms. It's important to note that this facade banding is rarely seen up close. And along McCabe Street, it starts at level 3, almost 15 metres above the footpath and set back above the building podium. Considering the overall height of the facade banding, is consistent with the approved version, at these distances, it's hard to notice the difference in profile. If we look at some of the zoomed in comparative visualizations, you can see that the proposed changes are still subtle. The color and finish are consistent with the original, and the aluminium profile has retained the same height to conceal any steps and thickness changes in the concrete slabs that are needed for the very large balconies. The new profile is shallower and therefore considerably lighter. This has been engineered to avoid complex cast-in structural fixings, to speed up construction and avoid outer sequence installation and scaffold. This reduces the risk of damage and takes months off the construction program. In conclusion, it's our opinion that Sarai doesn't rely on this detail to achieve the design excellence, and it's simply a subtle change to the aesthetic of the elevations. We support the council recommendation and encourage this panel to approve the amendment to allow construction to progress without delay. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Questions from panel members of the presenters? If you can just close out of that so I can see. Thanks.
Oh, stop sharing.
Questions, councillors? No questions?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
I have a question. Do you understand where the design advisory panel, is it? What do they call themselves at Fremantle?
Design Advisory Committee at the moment.
Committee. Understand where they're coming from, and I suppose I'm trying to, they seem to be quite strong in their comments. But I'm still puzzled as to why, looking at that, why that's seen to be a significant change. But you know, can you understand where the panel's coming from, or the committee's coming from?
The way I saw it at the time, it was quite unfortunate. We had 5 architects that hadn't seen the project at all until that time. We had an opportunity to, because time pressures, to go to the DAC, and if with their support, the officers, we could have withdrawn the Form 2 and got a delegated approval a month ago. We opted to do that. Ultimately, the DAC were very clear that it wasn't a better design outcome, so why would they support it? They had no consideration for the buildability, constructability, or supply and install issues. So they were very clear about that. We can't sit here and say it's a better design outcome. I think we all stand by the original design to say that was a great outcome, but utopian design is just that. If we can't build it 4 years later because of all the issues that we've dealt, then we need to come up with an alternative. But they were quite clear to say, look, until you're not showing us a better design outcome, so we're not going to support it.
And probably the other point on that as well, they looked at where we'd gotten to with the design solution and the actual profile, and looked at that and said, well, can't you take that design further and get it closer to the original design? But the design that we presented is further, you know, if we actually demonstrated how we've gotten to this profile, we've pushed to the depth as far as we could and the height, and that's all been with the manufacturer and the facade engineer with what can actually be supported from a wind load perspective and the rolling around the curves. So there was a lot of development to get to that point, where part of what the panel looked at was how do you take this design further, and we probably didn't demonstrate that is further compared to where this particular solution started. So
it was hard in 10 minutes to be able to take them on that journey.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Further questions? Yes, John.
What's the height of what you end up with?
550.
550.
Yeah, 550.
So what's the slab edge dimension? About 250 or something?
They vary, and this was the thing. We needed something to conceal the slab edge because the concrete changes thickness all around the development, depending on how far the cantilevers are for the balcony. So it was so important we covered that up to conceal all the steps, and there's even some services behind. So the height of this element was pretty much fixed. It's determined by the biggest
spender. It needs to be that.
It needs to be, the height was critical. We couldn't reduce the height, otherwise you start to see the steps in the concrete.
And how is it fixed? I noticed if I'm looking at the detail correctly, you've got some clips which are fixed to the thing. How are they? Are they glued or are they?
No, it's all mechanically fixed, but it's post-fixed, basically bolted to the slab edge. Whereas the original version required actually
They're all steel fixed things, are they? I wouldn't want them to start to start.
Yeah, no, that's all part of the final design. We'll be signing off on all those last design elements. So we've got fairly well.
Just conscious of the atmosphere, the
No,
specifications.
absolutely. And we're pretty intensely looking at what the finishes and the warranties are on the actual coatings, etc. at the moment. So that's the next stage of sign off for this.
Goes to the fixings as well, because that's the sort of stuff that starts to break down eventually.
The intent is that the fixings and the brackets are put on the way up, and then the actual banding is put on the way down is what they're planning to do from a methodology perspective.
All right, thank you. No further questions?
Oh, just one more. Tom, were you part of the original design?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought you were.
Years ago.
Many years ago. Do you think that this compromises unacceptably, this is a direct compromise unacceptably the original architectural concept?
I actually think if we'd started at this point, there wouldn't be any discussion. It would still be a beautiful building with the current profile. Yeah. There's so much going on. There's so many curves and forms. It doesn't rely on this edge. In fact, some would say it improves it. It just strains it a little bit further. The city's mayor actually said it was an improvement in her mind because there's an issue in North Fremantle with dirt and dust settling on so the slender profile. Cleaner in years to come.
Thank you for that. No further questions. We'll move to, thanks gentlemen, we'll move to the officers of Chloe there. Chloe, did you have any comment you wanted to make or just take questions?
Happy to take questions, presiding member.
Are there questions of the city officers? No? Okay, you've got off scot-free there. Okay. We'll move on to the item. I'm going to move to the addendum, which is now the published recommendation. And it's the recommendation for approval. Firstly, to accept, and secondly, to approve and an amended condition. Is there a mover for that? Yes. Okay, Dale. Is there a seconder? That's Mr. Simon. Thank you. Dale.
Yeah, look, I'm supportive of the request to change the design. I'm not supporting the request based on feasibility or lack thereof necessarily, but I am supporting the change for some of the reasoning provided by the City of Fremantle Council. Specifically, it's my view that the changes don't make that much difference when you view the development in its entirety. When you look up close and you look at those renders closely, yes, I do prefer the wave design. But when you view that hero shot of the development that we had on the screen a little bit earlier, and the difference that the alternate banding makes, it certainly doesn't detract from the overall development to the extent that it would justify refusal of the request, in my view. And I'm buoyed by the evidence that the applicant has provided, and there's quite a lot of information that was there that you really have tried to make that wavy banding work. It doesn't appear to me that you've just gone to cost the design and it looked too hard and you want to walk away from it because it's not feasible. It looks like you really have tried to make it work, and you've given us evidence to that effect. Mindful that the development is under construction, and I understand that time is of the essence for you. I don't think any further delays to the process while you continue to try and make the wave design element work would be reasonable from my perspective, given the limited impact the amended design will have on the overall presentation on the building. So happy to support the change as recommended.
Thanks, Dale. John.
Look, I do think we have to take some view about the buildability of this, and clearly it's been comprehensively illustrated that this is not actually a viable form in this circumstance. I think that's independent of the cost. I think the actual compromises structurally that would flow from what was, you know, in concept a nice idea, really are really beyond reasonable. And equally, I agree that the reasoning put forward by the council, I think, is exactly right. This is actually a minor detail from a street point of view, from any point of view. apart from maybe even the Superman shot, it has very little bearing on the overall architectural form, and I think it's quite clear that the overall architectural vision is not compromised at all by this. It's interesting that there's a lot of architectural ideas which never see the light of day, but equally end up with outstanding outcomes. An example is the Sydney Opera House, which the original form of that original shape was not buildable. The original shape, the shape you see now, is actually a compromise on the original design, but it's something that we regard as one of the outstanding buildings in the world. So I don't think we can get hung up on minor details like this. I think this is an easy one to approve.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, and I support the two previous members' comments, so I'll try not to reiterate those. I mean, basically, the DAC's report, I think, is a fair report, but they have dealt with the matter in isolation. Clearly, the previous design was a better design. It was very ambitious, and you know, it had a great edge, but does that make the overall development design quality, the necessary design quality to allow the additional height? It clearly is a minor component, as has been said. And so much of the development was actually more interesting in the sense of the organic shape of the building, the way it sat into the landscape like a series of contours, almost reflecting the topography of the hills around there, but also the amenity for both the people living there, the arrangement of the building, which was so different to the other buildings that we've, through DAP have approved down the road, which are just sort of rectilineal, conventional apartment blocks. This one does stand out, and that aspect, that commentary of it standing out, is its design quality and the amenity it provides, as I said, for both the apartment dwellers, but for the community at large, is what impressed us originally. So we can't just deal with the edge in isolation. We need to deal with it in the overall context, and that's the question for us: does it remain of sufficient design quality overall to warrant the height approvals? And the answer to that for me is absolutely, clearly yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? From my point of view, sorry, Ingrid, Councillor Van Dawson, did you want to speak?
Yes, just briefly, thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy to support this proposal and amendment, and yeah, I'll keep this very brief. I second everything that's been said today from the panel members and Councillor Sullivan and council recommendation. Yes, yeah, very comfortable. I don't see it being a great design compromise, and yeah, looking forward to it being built and completed soon, I hope. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you, and I agree. From my point of view, not much else to add to the comments from previous speakers, but I just wanted to say that I'm always a little bit reluctant to go against the DAC and the officer's recommendations. They are based on good grounds. In this case, I feel that there was or there is an opportunity to compromise a little bit on that, because it is a minor element, and based on the evidence we've seen, I don't think that we'll see too much difference from the original design. And I agree, it's a very well designed building. It will look very good in that location. So no further comment from me, and I'll pass back to Dale, who got nothing to add. Okay, I'll put the motion in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you to the councillors from Fremantle and the staff. We'll move on to the Bayswater matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, welcome to Mayor Pafrati and Councillor Eveson. I'll just go through the preliminaries, councillors. Declaration of due consideration is for all members on the panel. Have all members duly considered the matter before them? Raise of hands. Thank you. Thank you. And are there any disclosures of interest?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, presiding member. I'd like to disclose an impartiality interest. Directors of the applicant are known to me through my role as mayor. They are residents of the city of Bayswater.
I think that's fine. Impartiality interest, and you can continue to deliberate on this matter.
Thank you.
We'll move on then to the item. King Street, Bayswater, proposed 13 warehouses. We have a presentation from Peter Merger. Peter, got 3 minutes. Getting the presentation set up.
All right, thank you. Good morning, panel members and councillors. Peter Merger from Urbanista Town Planning, and I'm here speaking in support of the officer report for 2 to 16 King Street in Bayswater. The application is for 13 warehouses, and initially this project started as basically two developments on quite a large site. What we've decided to do is actually to split this development and deal with the warehouse component at the rear, and then revisit the potential showrooms, which will be towards the corner of Beachborough Road and Country. That'll be the larger portion of this development. But the site itself is located in an area that is under transition. It is approximately 1 kilometre away from the New Morley train station, and the development is occurring in that area. It's about 1.3 kilometres from the Bayswater train station and about 500 metres to the Collie Road Tonkin Highway intersection. So there is a lot going on in this area. There is also the City of Bayswater depot very close by. And so we see this development as really contributing to the transition of the area, and providing compatible building to what is currently in the street. With respect to the site itself, it has a 90-metre approach to King Street. It's quite an unattractive streetscape and verge at the moment. There's overhead power lines. It's next door to, I guess, some heavy industrial type uses where they do metalwork and things like that. Diesel vehicle repair shops and the like. So what this will do essentially is be a softer type of industrial use with warehouses. And what we intend to do later on with the showrooms in the corner is to really sort of ease this into a more of a, I guess, light industrial type of a use. But really, ideally, what this will do is enhance the streetscape, the verge, and improve the look of the area, which is, as I mentioned, quite unkept and attractive at the moment. So apart from those benefits that the development will bring to the area, we believe that there's also Lombardi's that our client that own this site also own the site next to it, which is currently subject to an approval and works that are being undertaken on Beachborough Road West. So this forms a nice sort of a crescent along not only Beachborough Road South and King Street. And as the entry point into Beachborough Road South towards the Bayswater train station, it really sort of bookends, I think, what's going on towards the Bayswater train station and with the Bayswater hotel development that's happened there to the side of Beachborough Road West. So there's a lot of money going into the development of these sites, and we think that this is going to revitalise or help to sort of revitalise and help the transition of the area. With respect to the planning report, there are a few variations that have been identified to plot ratio to car parking, site cover and landscaping. Those provisions have been assessed against really some, I guess it's some outdated clauses within the City of Bayswater scheme. The scheme itself is 24 years old now, so there's some really lagging provisions in there that if you were sort of assessing this today against some new and relevant provisions, I think some of those probably clauses that we have in there with respect to plot ratio and site cover probably wouldn't be there. But notwithstanding, we make a very good attempt to provide sufficient car parking on the site, landscaping as well. I think there's 12 new trees that will be planted, and we're really upgrading the verge as well. So it's really going to improve the look of the area. Some of the materials that we're using within the development itself are quite modern, nice and new, and I think it's going to really complement what happens later on with respect to the corner site and also next door, as I mentioned, with the Lombardi development on Beachborough Road West. Notwithstanding the above, there is a condition in there that I would like to request be waived. That is condition number 11 in relation to a street tree, removal of one verge tree. The city initially came back to us and said that it would cost $4,500 to remove that tree. After questioning the city, they sort of brought that down to $1,000. But still, we are providing, in terms of that verge itself, there are currently 3 crossovers. We're reducing that to 2 crossovers. We're planting 4 new trees in there, and I think just to ask for a cost of $1,000 for removal of 1 tree, I think was unnecessary. So we would ask for that to be waived in consideration of the works that are being done to the verge to this area to upgrade King Street. So we hope that the the DAP sees sense in maybe removing that condition number 11. That's all that I really have to say in relation to development. I look forward to any questions that you may have in relation to the proposal. We thank the city for the support of the application, and we hope to get approval, start upgrading King Street and this precinct. Thank you.
Questions from panel members?
Yes, just a minor one. On page 15 of the report, it's recommended that an acoustic report be provided to demonstrate that noise that comes from the development won't exceed the noise regs, and there's a condition that's been imposed to complete that. How comfortable or confident are you that your operations will meet those noise regs?
We're fairly confident. We've already we've had some initial conversations with an acoustic consultant. That's a matter of if the city was of concern in any way that we weren't able to satisfy that condition, then they would have asked for a report that be fleshed out during the assessment process. We've had discussions with the city. Excuse me. It was just I guess a matter of trying to deal with this bit quicker. In that we applied a condition on the approval to provide the acoustic report. But given the nature of this area, there are some really heavy industrial uses that across the road from us are actually closer to Beachborough Road West, where there is a bit of a residential interface. And as I mentioned, this is a really sort of a light warehouse type of a use. So we're more than confident in being able to satisfy the acoustic requirements.
Further questions? It's my understanding that the $1,000 odd for the tree is not for its actual removal. It's for the loss of visual amenity. Want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's a funny one. The visual amenity of the area, presiding member, is I mean, one look at Street View and you'll see yourself the visual amenity is run down. The verge on both sides of the vehicles park, there's hard stand across the road. Given that it's a diesel repair shop and a lot of trucks visiting that site, there's just cars parked along the street all the time. There's power lines. There's really an unkept verge and broken paving and things like that. It's a really unattractive verge. That tree itself, it looks like it was plonked there at some point in time. It's not really I would consider a tree that's really contributes to the area in any way. And I think that by providing the 4 trees that we've been asked to provide, and we've actually shown I think 5 that we're happy to provide 1 extra given the length of the verge that we've got, the upgrades that we're doing, the removal of the crossovers from 3 into 2. I think I think we're doing more than enough in terms of contributing to the enhancement of that verge in the streetscape. So, you know, and that $1,000 would be better put towards actually planting new trees and doing other things as opposed to taxing us on its removal.
Often in these sort of locations, over time, the verge becomes another parking area. And how will your client prevent that from occurring and maintaining that verge?
Well, we feel we've provided sufficient parking on site for this type of development. The scheme itself, given that it is outdated, there is an adjustment factor, but it's only a very, very minor one. We've got, I think, over 50 car bays, nearly 60 car bays on this site, which for 13 warehouses we believe is sufficient. We've got bicycle parking there. As I mentioned, we've got the 2 train stations, one kilometre away on one side, 1.3 on the other side. There's a cycle path along Beachborough Road, very nice cycle path as well, which you can take to this development. There's high frequency bus routes on Collier Road itself as well. So in terms of the current Lombardi operation as well, when you go out on site, there's a lot of people actually live in the area that cycle to work, and there's amenities on site with respect to showers and those sorts of facilities. So we believe that we've got sufficient car parking on site to be able to, I guess, satisfy whoever's visiting to the site and whoever's occupying these units. And there's also the ability for, I guess, parking within the actual industrial the warehouses themselves as well. So if someone needs maybe not occupying all of the space, there's an ability for parking to occur within the actual shed itself. So we believe that we've got more than sufficient parking on site. And in fact, if you're probably applying today's standards with respect to parking, I think you'd be providing far less than the bays that we've been asked to provide.
I wasn't really concerned about the amount of parking. It was protecting the verge.
But we are upgrading the verge with the street trees and those sorts of things. So I don't think it's going to be. I think it's in the interest of the owner to ensure that the verge is maintained, kept, and I'm sure the city will keep an eye on it from a compliance perspective.
All right, thank you. No further questions of the presenters? No. Okay, thank you. We'll move. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll move on to the officers. Are there any questions of the officers? Yes,
Yes, if you don't mind, just picking up on the conversation about the removal of the street tree, do you have circumstances in the city where you are prepared to waive the requirement for payment of a fee or compensation for removal of a street tree? Are there certain circumstances where you are prepared to do that?
Through the chair, generally no, not prepared to waive the fee. It is part of the policy that when there's a removal of a tree, that the heliwell fee would be paid.
Okay, so there's no circumstances that you would think, all right, in this particular case, we think it's reasonable not to charge the applicant that fee?
No, through the chair, it would only be if the health of the tree was in a real poor condition that the city might wear the costs to remove that said tree. But in this case, it's determined that the tree health was actually in relatively good nick. So therefore, there should be a heliwell value paid.
Further questions?
Yeah, just on this point, the argument is that there's one tree being lost and 4 being put in its place. How do you respond to that?
Through the chair, through the policy, it talks about when a tree is being removed, it should be replaced by 1 additional tree. That's one provision. It then goes on to say where there's sufficient space in the verge for to accommodate additional landscaping such as trees. It will be up to the city's discretion to say whether it should or shouldn't be provided. In this case, we're dealing with an application where we've got a 90-metre wide verge. There is a slight shortfall of landscaping on site, but the additional trees make up for that loss of landscaping on site. The site also provides large deep soil areas, so we've got that right balance of providing the right amount of landscaping on site, and that's got to grow to fruition.
Through the chair, I might just add as well that we see it as 2 separate issues. So the removal of the tree and its payment should be treated as one separate issue next to the actual overall provision of landscaping and its quality. So we know that there's a shortfall of landscaping, albeit it's only 0.3%. The additional 4 street trees that they're proposing as part of the verge forms as part of the overall landscaping procedure. But the removal of the tree is separated in the 2 different policies. The former is the landscaping policy of the city, requiring the 10%. The secondary is the trees on private land and street verges policy, which deals with loss of street trees and Helliwell Valley. Thank you.
Further questions of the officers? No? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Move on to the item. RAR with a recommendation for approval with conditions. Is there a mover for that? So, thank you. Seconder? John Syme, thank you. Dale.
Thank you, presiding member. Look, I'll support the recommendation for approval. In terms of the parking shortfall, I note that a petition was received expressing concerns about the shortfall, but I'm pretty comfortable with the explanation and the justification provided in the city's responsible authority report as to why the city feels this won't be an issue. And there are a few variations to scheme requirements, plot ratio, site cover, percentage landscaping, number of trees and so on. But I note that clause 8.2 of the city scheme allows for discretion to vary standards, provided the proposal remains consistent with the orderly and proper planning of the locality, and provided there aren't adverse amenity impacts to other landowners. The responsible authority report, in my mind, has demonstrated that variations to scheme standards are relatively minor and they won't result in undue amenity impacts. I'm particularly pleased that although there is a shortfall in the number of trees on site, this appears to be well compensated for, with the intention to landscape the verge area as currently proposed. And hearing the conversation around condition 11, I'm pretty happy to stick with it as it is for the minute. So that's me. Thank you.
Yeah, John.
Yes, look, I think as a land use, this is a fairly light use for this and an easy use for this environment, for this area. I think it's good that the general area is being upgraded in this way. I think it would be an asset to the street. There are some small areas of discretion that we've asked to, but I think in the scheme of things they are quite minor, and I think they're generally either justified or compensated, particularly as far as the trees go. I'm a bit uncomfortable with the condition regarding the tree. I understand they're two different sorts of policy, but there is a sort of a more black and white version of this that is they're losing one tree and gaining four, bearing in mind that there is also quite good landscaping on the site itself. I'm tempted to, in fact, I'll propose an amendment to exclude to delete condition, whatever it is, 11.
Okay.
So I'll move the deletion of condition 11.
Right. Is there a seconder for that? Yes, Mayor Freddie. Thank you. John, did you want to speak on that amendment?
Okay, yeah. Look, I think this is actually an unfair tax on the development. I don't think it's justified. I understand there's two different levels of policy in there, but I think in this case it's not really justified. And in a black and white sort of sense, there's one tree down and four being replaced. It's a difficult area. There's power lines on top of this, so any tree that is there is not going to be much more than 3 or 4 meters high anyway. The heavy lifting for tree canopy and so on really is going to be done by the quite good provision of trees on site. So I think this is an unfair tax on the development, and I don't think it's justified.
Thank you. Mayor Pifrati as seconder.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Further speakers on this? I support the motion to delete that. I understand there's two separate policies, but really in total we're talking about an amenity issue. So the net outcome in amenity terms is far better than the existing amenity. So I'm quite happy to exchange the one tree for 4 or 5 trees. So That's my view. I'll pass back to John. Sorry, further speakers? No? I'll pass back to John as mover. to close the
nothing
debate on
further,
it.
thanks.
Nothing further. So on the amendment, I'll put the amendment. All in favour of deletion? Against? That's carried 3-2. Thank you. John, floor still with you in terms of.
Look, apart from that, it's a good development. I think it's an asset to the area, and it's one that can be easily approved.
Okay. Further speakers on the substantive motion? No, I agree with the comments from previous speakers. It is a good development in the context of the locality, and I think we'll see a lot more in that area in the coming years. So back to Dale as the original mover.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add. Okay, I'll put the substantive motion as amended. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Wind up the meeting. There's no forms 2. There's no section 31s. There's some SAP matters there, and I'll close the meeting at 10:20. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.